Good morning. Welcome. Welcome as we gather together in this season of Lent, the third Sunday of Lent, as we gather as a community together and welcome all and proclaim to one another that God's doors are open to all. Here at Visions, we do proclaim a welcome, that God's doors are open to all. We are a spiritual community, welcoming a diversity of people, celebrating and exploring in faith together, reaching out in love, daring to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. And in our efforts to seek reconciliation with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, we acknowledge as we gather, and we remember with gratitude that we live and worship on lands that are by law the unceded territories of the Mi'kmaq.
May we live with respect on this land and make peace and friendship with its peoples.
And so, in that spirit of peace and friendship, we share and extend the peace of Christ to one another, but we also know this is like flu season. So I'm going to suggest, a few people have mentioned concerns to me, so let's just maybe we can greet the person sitting next door to us and just share the peace of Christ. So peace be with you. And God said, the seventh day is my Sabbath. It is time to rest from your labors. And so we come to this place to rest in God's presence, to be refreshed by love, to be renewed by grace, to be reminded of the gospel call to love and to be loved. So let us gather our voices in prayer. Holy One, your breath gives life, your love brings truth, your stories bring hope. Open us to your spirit of wisdom, so we may discern truth for our living. Renew us with your life-giving presence. Show us the way of love, that we may be faithful followers. Amen. So as we gather, we light the candle of Christ. This sacred presence is our light. This sacred presence is our way. This sacred presence is our promise.
This is Lent. This is a journey. Thanks be for Jesus Christ.
And so in this time we sing. Take time to ground ourselves in the gift of spirit and in those moments that we might want to give voice to or just call to mind in our hearts where in this past week the Spirit has indeed been at work, those moments that have brought joy, that have caused us to say, wow.
Sean probably knows what I'm going to talk about, but...
I think it's more Brian has turned on, so you should be okay.
Yeah, I think Reverend Sean knows what I'm going to talk about this morning, but I just want to share with all of you that I had the chance to be in a production of Narnia last weekend, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, with Crandall, and it went extremely well. Friday night was sold out, and as Sean could tell you on Sunday, we all had a great time. It was a great experience. It was a great weekend. All of them, except for me, pretty much were sick, but we gave it our all, and we had a lot of fun. And I just want to say I feel like I've accomplished so much, not only making friends and getting out there more, but just the fact that I was in Hamlet in the summer and now Narnia, you know, two of my favorite stories in less than a year. And a lot of people used to tell me that, oh, you might have a limited acting career, or you might not be able to balance school and this at the same time. And just the fact that whether that person was me or other people telling me I couldn't do stuff, just the fact that I was able to get out there and do something fun with a bunch of friends was just an amazing experience. And I'd like to do it again, but I think I'm going to need a break. But that being said, I really enjoyed it. And if you were there and I missed you, I'm sorry. But I just wanted to share that with all of you. Thank you.
Is there any other moments folks would like to share? It was a great production. It was fun to be there.
And I see that you like the pencil in my hair.
Yes. Do I have one in my hair right now? Yes. Well, we don't have any young ones here this morning. But those of you who've been here each week, you'll know that we're exploring the theme of covenant. And we began the first week with the promise of of God's promise to be with us always, as in the story of that rainbow in Genesis and the promise made to Noah. And last week we spoke about the promise to Abraham and Sarah of God's presence and the promise that each of us is part of that great family that is as many as there are stars in the sky. And so this week, well, it's pretty obvious what color we're adding. I think our wow moments are sort of, green is like, you know, the reminder of growth, of life. And our wow moments are often those times that are moments of growth, of beginnings, of life. What other things does green remind you of? Spring, hopefully coming soon. St. Patrick's Day. That would, yes, we should be having this in 2 weeks' time, the green, but it wouldn't quite work with the order of our rainbow. Yeah, spring. And all the green growing things, of the earth renewing, coming back to life. There's always life, but the signs that we see of the green and growing things. So, in terms of covenant, you can't talk about covenant without talking about the covenant of God's word as promise and to the Hebrew people. And so today our focus is that story from Exodus. And after the Hebrew people had escaped the wrath of the Pharaoh and their time of slavery in Egypt, and through that story of the parting of the Red Sea, and then into the wilderness. And where would they go? Where would they go? How would they discern a way? And so out of that time of wandering in the wilderness comes this story of the gift of the 10 Commandments. And so that's going to be our reflecting today. And Daphne found a song that she was going to have the choir kind of share with us. But we can sing along if we want and can keep up or read along.
They could come join. They could join in a refrain anytime they'd like. We didn't have a choir practice on Thursday night. Of course, the weather always has to be worse, right around the 4 or 5. And then I only get a call. I said, well, John said, well, is there going to be choir? Well, no one's called to say that there's going to be choir until the 10 after 6. It's like, no. And I even got Bill and Anna. They were just getting their coats on, but Bill was actually my one and only that came is one that never normally comes, was John Russell. So we've only learned this song this morning, and if the guys, I only put the words, or Brian has put the words up on the screen for your benefit, just in case we kind of twist some words around. But my choir is going to follow their music, right? Guys?
So they're they're not going to do the actions that you found.
No, they are not. Oh, they can't even, they're all gonna do their own act.
We could have done the actions with the kids, but they're pretty fast.
But we slowed it down a little. It's kind of weird. It's kind of fun.
So we hang the green as we think about covenant and the gift of the 10 Commandments to the people of God, and a gift to us to help us grow in the way of love, to grow in our faithfulness to God and to one another. So I had thought of having you all try to remember what the 10 Commandments were, but I think we just got primed, and the choir might have that still in front of them. But did anyone like myself have to memorize those growing up? How many people had to memorize them? Quite a few. Some of us maybe escaped that. They were a tad easier than the Beatitudes, I seem to remember. But still, we've grown up with so many ideas, impressions of what those 10 Commandments are about. And as I said earlier, we can't speak about the Judeo-Christian faith without and the idea of covenant without talking about this. They were like this practical, they're really a summary of all what the Jewish people call the Torah, the law. Some people even say originally it may have been just 10 words, but over time as that was explained and we have the text before us, there is some expansion to that. I'm going to go back and read the whole passage from Exodus, even full of its, definitely patriarchal context. And also, even with some of the language that might not quite be in keeping with our image today of what we imagine of our God. But we'll go back to that to ground and prepare for some time of reflection. So reading from the book of Exodus, chapter 20. Then God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing children for the iniquity of parents to the third and fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing steadfast love to the 1,000th generation of those who love and keep my commandments. You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. For 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your livestock, or the alien resident in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and consecrated it. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or male or female slave, or ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. When all the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, the sound of the trumpet, and the mountain smoking, they were afraid and trembled and stood at a distance and said to Moses, "You speak to us, and we will listen. But do not let God speak to us, or we will die." Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid." Well, this morning, as we have an opportunity to reflect more fully on these 10 Commandments, we actually are going to welcome a guest preacher. And so I want to introduce to you and welcome this dynamic preacher who's going to share with us some insights in the 10 Commandments. And so please join me in welcoming the Reverend I.B. Lee. Welcome.
Thank you all. Well, I'm here today to tell you folks that the 10 Commandments are more than just a great movie featuring rock climbing and parting the Red Sea. They're the rules, the laws that God Almighty has given us to live by. And it's time we started taking them more seriously. Since the time of Moses, they have been the very foundation of God's covenant with the Hebrew people. They are the very foundation of the teachings of the Christian church. And I ask, who are we to doubt the wisdom of God's law? After all, they have survived the test of time for 3,252 years, and yet what is happening to this generation? We've strayed from the way. We've forgotten moral code. It's time we get back to the basics of the faith. Thou shalt not.
Whoa, whoa, preacher. Why don't you cool your jets? Take time for a breath. You're going to scare these folks away before they've even finished their morning coffee.
Who's that talking? Is someone out there questioning my word?
Not out there, right here. It's me. You know, as I was listening to your sermon, I couldn't help but think people got to have a chance to figure out what such important words about their faith mean for their own life. Faith isn't blind. It's inspired by conversation with others, and it's deepened with understanding. I'm not sure these folks are going to be convinced how important these commandments are just because you tell them they should be.
So, what would you know about it?
Well, I did have something to do with those words I spoke to Moses up on that mountain so long ago.
Oh my God.
Yes, you were calling?
I don't quite think I know what's going on here.
Well, give me a moment. I'll be right there.
Okay, so God, where are you?
I'm still here.
And I'm here.
Huh?
And I'm here.
Well, now I'm really confused.
Remember, I created all of you in my image. What did you expect? To talk to a cloud or a pillar of fire? I thought you needed a human touch, some face-to-face conversation. Remember what Jesus said? Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am present. Why don't you sit down, have a chat? I'll be listening.
You know, I've been working on this sermon all week and brushed up on all 10 commandments. Straight from here, Exodus 21 to 17.
We know the passage. Remember, though, when I first gave them to Moses for the Hebrew people, the world was very different. Perhaps some of them need a few more words of explanation today. You can only fit so much on a stone tablet, you know.
What's really important is how they apply to today's world.
But listen here. These are written rules, laws. They're open to interpretation by us mere mortals.
The 10 Commandments were etched in stone, but they aren't set in stone. They are a living word. Every generation is called to struggle to understand and apply them to their lives.
Take, for instance, the first one. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me.
Yeah, but that's not the way that you and King James wrote it. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. Thou shalt have none other gods before me. But I know what you're trying to say. You're the only God we need.
Yes, but you can't tell people who or what to love. You have to remind them, call them back to the source of love that gives them life.
Remember, I created you and all that is around you. Just as a child has need of a parent, all of you have need for me in your life. Wisdom to guide you through the journey I have given you. A presence to lean on when life gets tough.
Give your life to me. I will always love you. I will never abandon you.
Yes, and that's the reason for the second one. You shall not make for yourself an idol or bow down to worship them.
Geez, I know that one's tougher than it sounds.
Back in Moses' day, there were a lot of different idols and gods that people worshipped. The world's not that different today. People still worship other gods, such as money, power, people who are seen as heroes.
I understand that you have a need for those things in your life. But remember, they were created by me, just like you. They are not the source of life.
Well, I'll bet that you really like the next one. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain.
Well, everyone's name is precious. My name is just as important to me as yours is to you. Don't pray to manipulate your God into giving you what you want. You don't really want a God like that, do you? And don't disrespect or abuse God's name. How would you like it if someone yelled your name every time they hit their thumb with a hammer?
But I do love hearing my name in prayer and song. And remember the Sabbath to keep it holy.
Some people think that is an old-fashioned idea. But when I look at the rat race you people are in today, I think keeping the Sabbath is even more important than in Moses' time. You keep cramming your life with more and more things. You live according to a clock. Look, everyone needs a rest. The earth needs a rest. Quit killing yourselves with work and unending activity.
Even I took the seventh day off. Sabbath time. Rest. Take time to care for your soul.
Okay. Care for our soul. I like that. But we also have to care for others, like in number 5. Honor your mother and your father.
You are all children, someone's child. It's important to honor your caregivers, whoever they may be. Sometimes those people are parents or teachers or other family members, and sometimes it's adult children caring for their aging parents.
I think of honoring as showing affection, having respect, showing consideration of feelings, giving thanks, expressing concern and appreciation, listening. All of these things are important, no matter how old you are.
What do you mean by that, Crack? How old you are? Me and Norm there, we object to that. But, yes, all those things are important for any relationship. Forget about age.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at with the rest of the commandments. Relationship. You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. You shall not covet.
You shall not kill. Well, that has to be one of the hardest ones for us to figure out these days. We all know that war and murder are killing, yet this law hasn't seemed to have changed much. Check the news any day. You read or hear about individual acts of violence and murder, even institutional terrorism and war. And what about those tough social issues we hear about these days, like abortion and assisted dying? Where do you draw the line?
God is about life. I stand for life. Ask yourself this question. Will my decisions and actions bring life to the situation or harm? The answers won't be easy, but engaging with others in the struggle to make these decisions is what faithfulness is about.
And speaking of faithfulness, the next commandment does say, you shall not commit adultery.
Everyone knows how important trust and loyalty are, and we need to feel safe and secure in our relationships. Committing adultery destroys love, loyalty, and trust, and even self-esteem. The question always is, am I acting in ways that honors and respects the other person and the relationship we share. When there are problems in relationships, people need to communicate with one another and find the best way forward. These aren't the 10 easy ways, but the 10 best ways to be in community with each other.
You shall not steal.
I'm sure, IB, when you were young, you thought stealing meant taking a loonie or a penny, I guess, from your parents' wallet. Or maybe a 10-cent chocolate bar from the corner store without paying for it.
But it's also possible to steal from others without taking something material from them. In this world where material things mean so much, sometimes people forget the silent things we steal from each other. By yelling at someone, you steal their self-esteem. By belittling, you steal their dignity. By mocking, you steal their individuality. By restricting someone, you steal their freedom. No one has the right to take any of these things from someone else.
Then there's violence. A person's emotional well-being can be stolen from them with a single act of violence. Feelings of safety, security, self-confidence are all gone, all stolen with a single slap or punch.
You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. That means lying and fake news, folks.
It sure does. And lying includes anything that could damage someone's reputation. Everyone has the right to their opinions, but not if they include hurting others with their words. We should think before we speak and only say things that strengthen our relationships.
When you lie to one another, it weakens the trust you share and leaves others with feelings of mistrust. A person is left wondering who they can trust, who they could trust again.
The opposite of bearing false witness is speaking the truth, but always speaking the truth in love.
Now, the last commandment, you shall not covet. That's a hard one to see. It isn't always obvious because it has more to do with the mind's thoughts and the heart's desires.
But so what does covet mean? Well, it means you have a strong desire for something that belongs to another person.
And why wish for what others have? Are they really happier than you? I don't think so.
There is a difference between, well, wanting what you need, like enough food to eat, and a caring relationship, or a few, and wanting more than what you really need to live well.
You know, God, I came here today thinking I had something simple and straightforward to tell these people. I thought it was just a matter of talking it to these folks and telling them what's right and wrong. But now, well, I really don't know what I'm going to be doing unless God really comes in and answers that question for me.
Be gentle with yourself. I admire your enthusiasm and faith. But remember, I gave these laws as a gift. When I freed the Hebrew people from Egypt and their life of slavery, they didn't have much experience making their own decisions. They needed direction. These commandments were meant to show them a way, help them know how to relate to each other as free people and live as God's people. Today, you folks have freedom, but you have so many choices. Life can get pretty overwhelming. So look at these commandments as a gift to use in your daily lives today. If at the end of each day you can say that you have tried your best to live your life faithfully, then you have done well. They are not meant to put the fear of God into you, but to help you find the love of God that is already in each of you.
Well said, God, as usual. Maybe we should just simply end this sermon with a prayer. I know I could use one. Let us pray. God, you are our source of life and giver of every good gift. Thank you for your presence in our lives as we seek to make faithful, loving, and just choices in caring for all of creation and for each other. Just as your commandments were written for the ancients, so also do they guide our lives today with God-given understanding. Not to deny us the joy of living, but to make joyful living possible. Continue to lead us in the way of peace, patience, and love through the example of Jesus. Amen. See you next week.
So we sing, There Is a Time. We know the way. There's a time we watch and pray. In this time, we hold in prayer the cares of one another and the yearnings of our heart. There is a time for healing. So we remember those we know living with illness, grieving a loss, seeking healing of mind or body or spirit. We watch and we pray for healing. There is a time for peace. Remember the places in our world where there is conflict and war, where people live with uncertainty, where abuse destroys relationships, where turmoil unsettles hearts. We seek and pray for peace within and among us. There is a time for justice. We remember there are always hungry people, people seeking meaningful work, striving for dignity, hoping for a future, calling for justice. We work and pray for justice. There is a time for gratitude, for always, always there is blessing. The gifts of this good earth and beauty of creation, caring gestures of friends, love of family, the freedom we enjoy to think and do, to choose and simply be. For blessings, we give thanks. In living faith, may we make our way together. For blessed are our lives, blessed our love, and blessed the promise gathered now. We sing. And so we bring forward the offering of our gifts. For these offerings and our gifts by par are our promise. A promise of faithfulness to walk in Jesus' way. A promise of support to our faith community. A promise of help to those in need of love's presence. May we live the promise of faith today and every day. Amen. Part of our invitation to generosity is also found in our being in community together and in the sharing of our gifts. So I want to say thank you to our participants in our drama reflection, to Peter and Audrey and Ainsley and John. So thank you very much. And the office is closed this week. That notice is in the announcements. Kristen is on vacation. It's March break, and so she'll be spending that week with her family, so we wish her well. I'm going to be away beginning on Tuesday for the coming week, and the reason and explanation for that is also in the bulletin. It's a work week of a writing retreat on some services that we'll be having as part of the spiritual memoir project we've been doing with Janice McLean, and those services will happen after Easter, as well as a meeting I'm going to have at General Council office with the EDGE Network about our ministry here at Bishops. So, meanwhile, next week there's going to be an armchair ministry as part of armchair ministry conversation as part of worship, and John Russell is going to be interviewing Manar. Pardon me? I didn't know how to say his name for sure. So say it again for us, John. Manar Dawad, who is the young man from that we, as part of the United Kodiak Refugee Group, have helped to come to Canada. So we're going to have an opportunity to hear Manar's story, some of his transition to Canada, and also to hear a little bit probably about his faith. So I'm going to be sorry to miss that, but I hope that you'll all be looking forward to that. There are some posters for the pancake brunches that Joan is going to have, as I'm doing today, but by Sean's mistake doesn't quite have them. They're still at the printers, but they will be picked up. So you'll be getting those out and around. Is there anything else you want to say about the pancake brunches, you or for June?
Is that moving as before?
And we're still looking for some volunteers, especially for the front.
We still need someone the second week, especially for serving, for making the coffee and tea for one shift. And we need help setting up on Friday afternoons at 3.
2.
Oh, 2 o'clock, you changed it, okay, 2 o'clock.
Okay. So people can come out and help on Friday at 2. That's great. And then a few more volunteers for the second week especially. Okay. And there's a note, because we have both weeks' notices in the announcements, given that there won't be any sent out next week. The CLT, the leadership team, meets on Tuesday, March 13th. We're going to actually, the first hour of that meeting is an open gathering. I mean, all CLT meetings are open, but we're especially inviting congregational members to come between 7 and 8 that evening. Some folks from Central United are going to join us and share with us some of their learnings around partnering and building partnerships, because, you know, they are in the same community as we, and one of our sister congregations, so it's an opportunity for us to ask them some questions about their journey, hear some of their story, and takeaways for them about that journey of building partnerships. So if you are interested, if you can come, we certainly welcome you as we keep trying to expand that conversation move forward on that. Is there any other announcements? Helen?
I'll just remind UCW members, we're meeting on March the 14th, Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock at Carol Kelly's home. So that's Wednesday, not this week, the week from Wednesday.
Inclusion Advocacy is having two fundraisers in a couple of weeks. One is on March 17th, Saturday. It's the Move to Include 5K walk, run, 10K run for all those who love to run. I see a whole bunch of runners. The second event is on Sunday. It's being hosted by the Rotary. It's a curling event. So teams of 4, I guess, curl. Not a curlers, I don't know. And that's on the 18th. So if anybody's interested in putting in a team divisions, if there's 4 people that know how to curl, you're welcome to do that.
Speaking of curling, I know, he's shy, or he probably won't want me to say this, but you should have been sharing a wow moment, Doug. That was pretty awesome. Do you want to tell us?
I competed in the provincial men's 50 and over seniors, and we lost in the final. Thanks to the Canadians.
Pretty impressive.
I just want to say that Art and Wade have lost their nephew. He was only 50 years old. It was very sudden. And his name was James Gocho. And the funeral is in the Catholic Church in Notre Dame at 7 o'clock on Tuesday. And Art, of course, is devastated. So prayers go out to that family. Is that funeral not in Bacchus? No, it's in Notre Dame. The body is at rest in Bacchus.
I wasn't here last Sunday to give you a notice about the coldest night of the year. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the other gals that were going to walk with me couldn't make it, so I was the sole walker for our church. But it was a beautiful evening. It was sunny, and I was able to wear my sunglasses, so I did my 5K walk. We as the church donated, thanks to you people, $200. And their goal was, I think, $89,000, and they raised over $100,000 in Moncton. There were over 300 walkers, and it was very nice. If you want to see some pictures, you can go on to the cnoy.org website, and they do have photos downloaded. And but it was really, really nice, and I enjoyed it, and hopefully next year we'll do it again, and maybe some people will be able to join me next year.
Yes, thanks for organizing that, Trudy. And you said some circumstances just led for some folks who couldn't this year, or some folks that had planned things. So thank you for being there. Let us journey forth in song as we join in Grateful.
Joyful in your spirit,
met for a time in this sacred space of community. And now we're called to go forth. And so take with you some word or question that has moved you. Take with you some song or silence that has been a channel of God's love. Take with you some spark of light that has kindled peace in your heart.